independent people know that Obama, oh, before going there, you know, in 2018, late 2018, Jeff Merkley was one of the first, actually is the first senator to bring the media attention to the situation at the border. So Jeff Merkley did that. And since then, almost every day he tweets or posts on social media and he talks about the immigration. And in each post, in each statement, he really attacks Trump with it. So he criticized what's going on, which is tragic, but he only talks about Trump. So far, I think he exceeded maybe 2,000 times talking about immigration since 2018. 2,000 times. Yeah, sure.
Can I show them a picture?
Yeah, let me comment and you can share the screen. Anyhow, 2,000 times he did that, maybe more than that. And in each time he talks about the Trump administration, but people don't know what Obama did and what Jeff Merkley himself did under Obama administration with regards to the immigration policy. I think you are sharing the screen of the Senate Amendment 1399, right. Which was passed in 2010, yes. So this is a crucial, you know, he talked a lot about Trump's wall. All the Democrats did. But look at who voted for Obama's wall. Go ahead, Dan.
The whole thing?
Yes.
Can you see the whole thing, or is it just the top?
Yeah.
Because I know the screen shares sometimes don't work.
No, we can see all of that.
Well, I'm sure the folks can read, but to require the completion of at least 700 miles of reinforced fencing along the southwest border. Merkley, yay. Voted for it.
Yes, not only that. We know that Obama was being called the deporter-in-chief. So why he was being called like that name specifically, the deporter-in-chief? Because he deported 2.5 million of people during his presidency. He built the cages that Trump is using. He expanded ICE. He separated more than 10,000 kids from their family. Those are the same points that Jeff Merkley pretends to oppose. And don't tell me he didn't know about this, because the media covered all of these points that I am telling you about. Let me share one video. I found it very interesting for the people to see for themselves. It is a very interesting one because it is coming from someone who's saying now that he's going to vote for Biden. Listen to that guy. You know him, his Mahdi Hussein.
That the Obama administration has deported 2.5 million undocumented immigrants from the United States over 2 terms. 2.5 million. That's the highest number for any president ever. In fact, Obama is on course to have deported more people in his 8 years in office than all of the presidents of the 20th century combined. I guess that explains why his immigration enforcement budget in 2015 was a whopping $18 billion. That's $3 billion more than the budgets of all the other major domestic law enforcement agencies combined. Now, the Obama administration says the vast majority of the people it deports are people with criminal records, felons, threats to national security, which sounds reasonable, except that a study in 2014 found that 2/3 of deportation cases involved people who had committed minor infractions, including traffic violations, or had no criminal record at all. Take the case of Jose Marvin Martinez.
So I'm going to stop it here. I think I made the point. Where was Merkley for 8 years? The only thing that he has done is support that policy, remaining silent on that policy. In 2016, he was briefed, the Senate was briefed that there's a humanitarian crisis at the borders. What do you think Merkley did at that time when we heard about it? Nothing. He waited 2 years and he made it one of his biggest issues. This is who is Jeff Merkley. He hides behind a smile and does all of that. Not only this, there's a surprise here. It is not a good surprise, but I want you to look at it. So those are the corporations that are investing in the private detention centers, right? So this is from 2015, and this is what I want you to see. Fidelity, right? Did you see it?
Mm-hmm.
And here is the private prisons and private detention centers. It was published in 2015. Let me see if I can get the date. Here, 2016. So anyhow, this is Jeff Merkley's financial disclosure of 2016. If we go down there and try to see his investments, look at the surprise here. Fidelity. He and his wife, you'll see his wife here, joint with his wife, and we'll see his son also has assets and investments.
Which particular fund was it?
It's all pension and retirement, but this is what we're talking about, pensions here, right?
Well,
so
let's see the exact fund name so that the people know to divest from it.
Yes, this one.
What's it called? Fidelity Small Cap Discovery.
And this is one of them, and they can really investigate it and see what's really the other funds that are being used. I might be mistaken. That's fine. I can make mistakes, but anyhow, I don't think so.
FSCRX is its abbreviation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got FSCRX, you own private detention center stock. At least you did in 2015.
FC what?
Well, I just looked it up. It's FSCRX.
CRX.
FSCRX.
Anyhow, I didn't know about that fund. Regardless, I might be mistaken, but anyhow, this is what he did. He remained silent from 2016 after being briefed. Obama gassed the immigrants on the border. He built these cages. A lot of these photos that are being circulated right now are from the Obama era. Anyhow, there was Jeff Merkley there, and the only thing that he did is voting for the Obama wall in 2010. So this is the immigration issue, and you could see that to this day, nothing changed about it. And this is what politicians do. They talk, but they don't change anything about it. Anyhow, one of the biggest things that are known of Merkley is that he's not owned by Wall Street. Partially, I agree to that statement. But the other thing I would like to talk about is how many times he helped Wall Street and how many times he helped the establishment of his party, which is owned by Wall Street. I will talk only about the major bills. What are the bills that really devastated our economy, transferred the wealth to the 1%, benefited the 1%, and how many times he stood against the people and with the 1%. Just recently, if we look, he just voted for the stimulus bill. The stimulus bill was about $6 trillion. 4.5 trillion of them went directly to corporations as a giveaway. And he voted for it. And after that, immediately he came down here to Oregon saying that I voted for that bill that will help small businesses. But we know now that most of those small businesses did not benefit from it. On the contrary, 41% of all small businesses are going to be permanently closed. And that in itself does not justify the bailouts to these corporations. How do you justify that? How do you justify enriching the wealthy class that does not need that money just to maintain their wealth? So he voted for it and came down to Oregon saying, I support you. You are the people of Oregon. I support you. I feel your pain, and I did it because I love you.
Just out of curiosity,
let me comment on that. I can't stay too much longer. But what they did was they take the taxpayers' money and they give it to Wall Street, while 41% of these businesses go under. Now those business owners can now go to Wall Street and borrow that money at interest, the taxpayers' money, in order to rebuild their businesses. And the banks get the interest. What a deal. What a sweet deal that is, huh?
Yeah, well, it is really one of the disastrous bills that was passed.
And the alternative is that the big internet multinational retail businesses, Home Depot and Walmart and so forth, can now move in and take over the market, so we can turn the whole country into a strip mall.
Yes, correct. And the other biggest disasters that was passed this year for our economy, for our people's economy, but for sure it was beneficial. It was a win deal for the corporations and the monopolies. It was the new NAFTA, the USMCA. The USMCA, we know about NAFTA, how it destroyed businesses, manufacturing jobs, how it really destroyed the economy of the country, but benefited the 1%. We know that, and even Merkley himself, he has a lot of statements criticizing the new NAFTA, the USMCA, and NAFTA, the old one. But nevertheless, he voted for it. He voted for something it can really described as a war on the people. But then he again claims that he is for small businesses. He is on the people's side. And people believe him without really questioning his records. This is a disaster because the impact, the consequences of these bills are not reversible.
Let me add
Those
a
are
comment. Let me add a
permanent.
comment here, Ibra. This is something that always annoys me around election season, is all this attention paid to debates. We don't need to be looking at debates and believe whatever people want to tell us. These people all have a resume. They have a long work history that's documented. And that's what voters ought to be looking at, exactly the things we're talking about right now regarding Jeff Merkley. We're talking about his actual resume, not what he might say in a debate.
Yeah, correct. I know that we don't have much time, but we missed, when we talked about foreign policy, we missed a very important issue in foreign policy, which is the Palestinian-Israeli side of this foreign policy. I think, Mr. Dresser, you are an expert on the Palestinian issue. If you would like to summarize in a few minutes, maybe 2-3 minutes, Merkley's positions and what do they mean with regards to the Israeli-Palestinian issue.
Well, Merkley has just simply supported everything that the Israeli lobby wants. And, you know, it's said that the people ask, why doesn't Israel become our 51st state? And the answer is because then they would only have 2 senators. And right now, Oregon alone provides them with 2 senators. You know, there's a whole list of, in fact, it's going to be up on your website, isn't it, Ibra, the piece I wrote?
Yeah, I published it yesterday.
Yeah, so people can look that up because it's pretty long. It's about 6,000 words, about 3 times a normal op-ed piece, 3 or 4 times. But I mean, it's a whole list of things that Merkley is completely submissive to whatever the Israel lobby wants. And it has to do right now, very importantly, with the question of anti-Semitism, trying to brand any criticism of Israel as anti-Semitic. He's perfectly okay with that. There's I think I listed 18 different myths that Israel and its lobby have used to try to justify their criminal behavior. Their land theft, their theft of Palestine clear back in 1948, the fact that they have no democracy whatsoever, even within Israel itself, where you have a 20% Palestinian minority, which is larger than any minority in the United States, is larger than the Black minority or the Hispanic minority here. They have a 20% Palestinian minority. They live under 67 different discriminatory laws that discriminate in virtually every area of life. And then you have another 3 million Palestinians living under occupation and blockade, military occupation in which they have no human rights, no civil rights. They're abused, they're imprisoned, they're murdered with impunity. And of course, Gaza is an open-air prison that Richard.
And the only, if I interject, and the only criticism you can see from Merkley is on the Palestinian side. Amazingly, those people whose lands was stolen, who were killed, genocide, living in apartheid state, and the only criticism that Merkley can really issue is against them.
That's right. What right do they have to resist their occupation and their displacement, and 55,000 of their homes bulldozed, and all of East Jerusalem being swallowed up, and they have the nerve to float what are called incendiary balloons over the fence to threaten poor, terrified, terrorized little Israel. I mean, it's just grotesque.
Anyhow, one of the I remember one of the really wars that resulted in a Congress resolution condemning Hamas and really supporting Israel and calling on the U.S. to veto any UN resolution condemning the crimes of Israel. It was in 2006, I think.
And that was the Goldstone report.
Yeah, Goldstone was like
following the Operation Cast Lead in 2008 that killed 1,400 Palestinians.
And again, Merkley was one of the people who voted for that report, for that resolution, to condemn that report that condemns crimes committed against the Palestinians.
Massive crimes. Israel even was bombing. They started Operation Cast Lead as Palestinian school children were transitioning between home and school. That's when they started their bombing. They even bombed classrooms that had children in attendance. They bombed mosques. They bombed the sewage facilities. They bombed water supply. They bombed everything in sight. They bombed an entire police station and killed the entire station full of Palestinian police. They bombed the UN UNRWA school there. I mean, it's incredible. They bomb everything, blowing up, sadistically destroying the basic infrastructure of life in Gaza. It's brutal, it's sadistic, it's completely deplorable, and Merkley's perfectly fine with that. Anyway, I've
He's
got to
not
go
only
now.
fine with that, he just voted to give them 3.8 trillion every year for the next 10 years in
Billion.
military
Billion,
billions,
yeah.
yes, in military aid.
Right.
So anyhow, thank you so much, sir, for being here. I think
Okay.
we ran out of time, and there are a lot of topics that we can talk about with regards to Merkley and his records. Anyhow,
All
people,
right, I've got to
Yeah.
I've got to sign off.
yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, bye.
See you,
So
Jack.
anyhow, regardless of what we've said, if voters don't inform themselves, if they don't learn for themselves, if they don't want to accept someone's information because that information is really criticizing someone that they like, they love. This is the result that we get. We get politicians can get away with such crimes without being criticized. We need those criminals being elected again and again and again. And then we wonder, why are we killing people overseas? Why are we having this disastrous economy? Why do we have a society that is not thriving? Why do we have atrocious policies at the border? We cannot have these both. We cannot ignore learning about our politicians, and at the same time we want a prosperous country. We cannot do that. We need to learn. Dan, you want to say something?
And we need to not just learn, but we need to approach what politicians say with as much skepticism as we've got, because they lie.
Yeah, I would like to end this meeting with a very fun fact about ancient Greek. In Greek, there was a group of philosophers, not really philosophers, but a group of people who are despised by the philosophers. They call them the sophists. Those sophists have a good, strong reputation of manipulating the words, how to convince people with anything by only manipulating the words. And one of the best professions that they used to teach, they used to attract, is politicians. So politicians would go to them to learn how to manipulate people with the use of words. This is an old art. This is what politicians do. They use the words that sounds good, what attracts people, and at the end, people who are not critical of them are convinced that they've heard the best words from the best people in the world. We need to be critical. We are in a critical time. If we don't be critical in this critical time about the people who would control our future, who will shape our future, then we don't have any right to complain about what's gonna happen, about the result of these votes. So Dan, do you have any ending comments?
Yes. Well, I just wanted to repeat that I do not trust politicians, and if you trust politicians, they will fool you with their rhetoric. Yes, you have to dig deep into what they say, find out the truth, and that doesn't mean ask other people. You got to learn the critical thinking skills to find out for yourself. And when it comes to, in particular, my main contribution to this session was the discussion on foreign policy. Much, if not most of that, is hidden from you deliberately. It's hidden from all of us. And there may be people calling you a conspiracy theorist for trying to find out the truth, but the fact is that what is done, what is hidden, is a conspiracy. And trying to find out, that means that you have to, trying to find out what is true means you have to actually go looking for the evidence. Not all theories are false, and you got to look into it and find the truth, because it is out there. And the only alternative is to live in a state of delusion, deceived by the system, which unfortunately most of us are.
Yeah, this is the sad truth. And sometimes we don't want to learn the truth because usually when we learn that truth, we will feel bad about ourselves because we let ourselves to be deceived. Anyhow, thank you so much, Dan, for being here today. Thanks for the listeners and the watchers. Please share this video. Let the people know. I think it is a responsibility to raise the awareness. Let the people know what's going on. Let the people know their candidates beyond what the mainstream media, the media is telling you about them. This is all for today. If you have any questions, you can go to my website and ask your questions. And please, again, learn about your candidates, all of them, not Jeff Merkley, every candidate, as much as you can.
I got one more thing to say. Vote for this guy. If you're watching this, then you probably have views that are at least mostly in alignment with what he's been saying and with what we've been saying and our party has been saying. Our party exists to give you a choice at the ballot box. That is the most fundamentally important thing about having third parties. Having only two parties, both of them corporate, is a duopoly, they call it, and that makes our version of democracy into a sham, because the most important thing is that there has to be something out there that represents your views. Vote what you think, vote how you think, and then the voting is at least closer by your own actions to what it's supposed to be, which is the people expressing their will.
Thank you so much, Dan. And again, thank you for listening to us. And hopefully you take some steps back and think about your decision before voting for anyone in any race. Thank you so much and have a good night.